Hello Lyme world, Beaux here, and I'm kind of on the fly today. Welcome to the November, 2nd, 2017 edition of Beaux Car Talk. Today I want to get you riled up. If people are not angry about the Lyme situation, we've got serious problems in activism. And I want to give you a lesson today, and I hope well, of course it's going to be backwards. It's going to be backwards, but I want to show you this, and I'll post a link to it afterwards. These are Western blot strips, and they are illustrative of the reason that you can't get diagnosed for Lyme, the reason that we are in this situation today where nobody can get diagnosed for Lyme. Your disease doesn't exist. Your disease is crazy. Your disease is, I don't know what you have. You don't look sick. Your disease is anything but Lyme. Your disease is autoimmune, which it's not, by the way. Your disease is arthritis, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, you know, anything but Lyme, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, whatever bucket they want to put you in. This explains it. So what you see here are Western blot strips. And as we all know, Western blotting is the way that Lyme disease is currently diagnosed, theoretically. Once you understand this, they can't mess with you anymore. And then it's your job to pass it on. So none of us can be messed with anymore, because this right here is a crime. Okay? This is not a theory. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not conjecture. This is a crime. Okay? So what's happening here is you've got two different outcomes of infection with Lyme spirochetes or Borrelia. You've got antibody concentrations that are illustrated here. Now on this side, where they look faint, it's because there's not a very high antibody concentration. So when they test your blood, what they're looking for are certain antibodies. They're looking for IgM, which is supposed to be indicative of current infection, and IgG, which is supposed to be indicative of past infection, or long-term antibodies that supposedly say that you're able to fight the disease. You had it and you're able to fight it, which is a lie. So you've got those faint bands there, not very many antibodies. And then on the other side, look how dark that is. That's a lot of antibodies. So before 1994, all of these were considered cases of Lyme disease. Okay? What happened in 1994? Anybody? Anybody? I'm looking at the comments. Somebody tell me what happened in 1994. Okay, so 1994 was the CDC's Dearborn conference, where they said their purpose was to standardize the testing for Lyme disease. But really what they did was they got rid of all of these cases. All of them. Those cases represent 85%. These are all of us here on Facebook, in the groups, looking for treatments, begging eyelads, oh, save me, save my sister, save my mom, save my kid, looking for the next great treatment that's going to save us. But it's not. Because we're going to talk about what this disease really is. And it's not curable with antibiotics or anything else that's out there. None of the snake oil is going to cure this disease. Okay? So 1994 Dearborn conference run by the CDC's own Barbara Johnson, Alan Barber, a whole bunch of other crooks who knew, by the way, that there were these two different outcomes. These, with the high antibody concentration, these are the ones they said, these are cases of Lyme disease. These are allowed to have Lyme disease. They produce lots and lots of antibodies. They're going to test positive on this test method that we're proposing, this two-tiered test method, where first you have to produce lots of antibodies to pass the ELISA test. And then if you pass that test, you're allowed to go on to the Western blot test, where then you have to produce 2 out of 3 specific IgM antibodies and 5 out of 10 specific IgG antibodies, which is insane. So these people, these are the ones they said, you're allowed to have Lyme disease. These are autoimmune cases. These are lots of antibodies. These are people who will pass the testing, who will get a positive test by what we call the Dearborn standard. And guess what? Those people are not sick. Those people have an arthritic knee. This is what the Lyme crooks themselves told us. Barbara Johnson, who is still at the CDC, she is a CDC lifer, should be a prison lifer, owns 5 patents with SmithKline in Europe, where she says there are these two outcomes. This one is a genetically linked, right here, the arthritis one, 15%, who aren't really sick. She said it's a genetically linked outcome. Arthritic knee only, none of the other symptoms. So what I'm telling you here is this side, low antibody producers, have all the symptoms. These are the people who will not test positive, who are running around trying to figure out what is going to save them because they can't test positive, because they don't have Lyme disease. What they have is actually much, much worse. What we all have in this group, 85% of the cases who are being denied, what we have is the neurologic disease. You know what the symptoms are, right? Do I have to go into the symptoms? It's the, the pain, the fatigue, what we call brain fog, which, the medical term is delirium. And it's probably the crooks who created that brain fog term to diminish it and make it sound like it's not so bad, Delirium is the medical term, and it's bad. So, you've got the seizures, the strokes, all the neurologic problems, the reactivated herpes viruses that cause all the other issues, like the trigeminal neuralgia and the, you got the shakes? Great, lovely, wonderful. I got that too. The rashes, who knows what? It's a shit show, right? It's a shit show of symptoms. We can't test positive. According to the CDC, we do not have Lyme disease because this is Lyme disease. So, here's what I really wanted to get to. And once you understand this, you're more than halfway there. You are more than halfway to understanding why all of the abuse takes place, why you can't get a doctor to believe you, why the news is always reporting on the controversy, but not really understanding anything about it. So when the CDC, or anybody associated with them, the ALDF is where the crooks really came from, American Lyme Disease Foundation, when they say Lyme disease, they are talking about this, and what they are saying is you're not really sick, because only 10% of these people right here, according to them, actually have post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome. So 10% of these, 15% of the cases are actually sick, is what they're saying, versus 85% of the actual total cases who are not getting diagnosed, who are not allowed to be sick, who are not allowed to have Lyme disease. So you've got to understand that. You've got to understand when anybody mainstream says Lyme disease, what they're understanding is that it's not a big deal, because it's just a bum knee, right? You got an ouchy knee, too bad, suck it up, try some antibiotics. Oh, the antibiotics failed? Too bad, so you got a bum knee, go get a knee replacement, right? Meanwhile, we're killing ourselves here, right? Because nobody believes that you have this disease. So when anybody mainstream talks about Lyme disease, says the word Lyme disease, that's what they're talking about. You're not really sick. Now, this presents a problem because none of the organizations who are supposedly advocating for us understand this issue. And so here's one of the things that will happen. So we've got this new tick-borne disease working group that was part of the 21st Century Cures Act that is being run by the HHS. Lovely. So Truth Cures has had a conversation with these people who are running that. And what we told them was that you're going to have a problem. You are not going to be able to do your job. You are not going to be able to reach your goals, accomplish what the bill is supposed to accomplish, because you're going to have this committee stacked with all the same people who have been arguing with each other all this time since 1994. Oh, spirochetes are chronic. Oh, no, they're not. Oh, yes, they are. Oh, there's chronic Lyme. Oh, no, there's not. Screw that. So what we told them was, you know, you're going to have the crooks who are going to say, oh, chronic Lyme is not a thing. It's easily treated, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to have the nonprofits, fake or otherwise, because we know there are fake nonprofits. Look at Pat Smith. Obviously, she's controlled opposition. The LDA and that whole gang, you know, they don't want to fix anything. They like their cushy jobs and salaries. So they're going to be arguing, oh yes, chronic Lyme is real. It's a thing, and we need antibiotics, and we need more research, and we need funding for research and to come up with a new test, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be the same runaround that we've been getting all these years. Same thing. Not going to get anywhere. And so what we said was, you've got to talk about what this disease really is. And where does that bring us? Right back here. This is what the disease is. This is an immune deficiency disease. This is a disease that is caused by the fungal type endotoxins that are shed by the spirochetes that cause immune suppression. And we know this because there are many parallel models. We know what these molecules do that are on the the surface of the spirochetes, when the spirochetes shed their outer surface when they're under attack. This is all really well known. And just today, Kathleen discovered an article newly published by Lyndon who is associated with the Lyme cabal, confirming this for us, that these outer surface proteins that are of a fungal nature that cause immune suppression are on these blebs that are shed by the spirochetes. They cause immune suppression. There is no way that you are going to test here if you are over here in terms of antibody production, if you are immune suppressed and you've got the shit show of symptoms. Which brings me to my next point, and that is everybody arguing for improved testing. All of these nonprofits who are raking in millions of dollars and putting funding toward groups like Hopkins, which is a joke because that's where half the crooks are from. Hopkins, and then Alan Barber, who is on the scientific advisory panel for the Bay Area Lyme Foundation. Wonderful. So he's at UC Irvine, and you know, he's the biggest patent holder of the entire cabal, and he just wants to patent everything so he can sell test kits and vaccines for all of this crap that you can't vaccinate against. So I don't know what these people are up to who are claiming to be advocates, raking in money and then not paying attention, not doing any research into who they're giving their money to and how long they're going to drag out this scenario of all of us being given this sentence. It's like a prison sentence. You know, you're sick and yet you're sentenced to life of just, oh, well, you know, you're sick, deal with it. We don't need that. We do not need that in advocacy. And we need to really start questioning who we want speaking for us. Do we want the Global Lyme Alliance having its galas and raking in millions of dollars and then handing over the money to the very people who've created this situation and are killing us and killing our kids? No! Sorry. But people, we've got to get angry. We've got to start thinking about these things and who is going to actually fight for us and who is going to address this situation right here, this disease that we all have, which is the neurologic disease that is not considered Lyme disease. Call it whatever you want. Call it Lyme AIDS, call it post-sepsis, call it immune paralysis, call it I like to call it tick bite post-sepsis AIDS, because that gets all the words in there that are really descriptive. That's what you got to know. You got to know that these people knew what they were doing when they changed the definition of the disease. They knew it. They knew that these people were the sickest. These people were not sick. They had an ouchie knee. They made the testing detect only these people. They called that Lyme disease. Now, for the last 23 years, every time they say Lyme disease, they're talking about this. So, you know, there are these court cases where people are trying to get disability, right? Trying to get disability based on Lyme disease. Well, they call the crooks in to say, oh, well, you didn't test positive here. You don't have Lyme disease. I don't know what the hell you have, but it's not this, right? Meanwhile, you're like falling out of your wheelchair, right? So, a little bit more on the testing. I think everybody's aware at this point that there is a pretty big lawsuit that has been started against the CDC for millions and millions of dollars. And we want to think that this is a great thing. CDC is accused of suppressing a direct detection Lyme test. And sure they did. You know, of course they did. They don't want anybody detecting spirochetes, obviously, because, you know, spirochetes are no big thing. But here are a couple of my issues with this. CDC has said that the testing sucks, right? So we know that. Everybody knows the testing sucks. So it's not really earth-shattering for the CDC to say, yeah, the testing sucks, because everybody knows the testing sucks. They're just, you know, affirming what everybody already knows. But the CDC will never come out with a test that detects anything but this. Because if they did, it would expose their crimes. For the CDC to suppress somebody else's direct detection test, I think it's natural. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know that anybody could win that case, but it seems to me that in the end, it's not really going to help, because what happens when you can suddenly say, yeah, I have spirochetes? It still doesn't acknowledge what the disease is, which is the tick bite post-sepsis AIDS disease, where you are not producing antibodies. And because you are not producing antibodies, you've got the shit show of symptoms. You've got the reactivated herpes viruses, the Epstein-Barr, the chronic active CMV, HHV6, all of that stuff. And that's more of what's causing all of your ongoing symptoms. So a direct detection test, you know, what the CDC would do is they would try to validate it against this. So any new test that comes out, the CDC is just going to say, it's bogus because it's not detecting this right here, Lyme disease right here. So what we've got to do is come out with a test that detects this. And the CDC crooks have published plenty of their own data on different ways to detect that. So that's our testing issue. I don't see this lawsuit as really being able to help us, because what we need to do is get them to go back to acknowledging that all of this is Lyme disease, and this Lyme disease right here is parallel to injecting bathroom scum, or the New England Compounding Center fungal meningitis scandal of a few years ago, where those guys are being prosecuted right now because 70 people died from having a fungal type antigen injected into them, which is the same thing as having a tick bite you and inject spirochetes that have fungal type antigens on their outer surface that are then shed into your bloodstream and then disseminate to your lymph nodes, blah, 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 cause immune suppression, and boom, there you are. So I hope this has been helpful. I want people to get angry. I want people to be informed. I want people to start questioning, who do you want advocating for us? Who is really talking about the right issues? Are any of these nonprofits helping us? What are they doing, giving money to the very people who created this situation? What do they think additional research is going to accomplish when the research is already there? We've got a 250-page book on what this disease is, how we know that, how these people obscured it, and how they continue to slander their victims, keep us oppressed, and keep us in this situation where we're begging for help. We are forced to beg for help. And one more thing. Sorry, I almost forgot. I wanted to talk about ILADS. Our friends at ILADS. Speaking of being angry. So, these guys are having a conference in a few weeks. A few weeks? No, like next week. Really soon. Have you looked at what it costs to go to this conference? It's like $700. Clearly, they do not want any patients there. Clearly, they do not want anybody there who is going to have anything to say that disputes anything that they are saying. So, I encourage everyone to take a look at their speaker agenda. And again, ask these critical questions. Is this person somebody I want speaking for me? Is this person somebody I want doing research on our behalf, knowing what the disease is? Is this somebody who, talks about Lyme in terms of an autoimmune syndrome? Or is this somebody who knows that this is an immune suppression disease? And if so, why isn't that person talking about it? Why has that person not come out publicly and said so? Because that's what we need. Why aren't these ILADS people coming out publicly and saying what the disease is? Is it because they're trying to protect their business? I don't know. I really don't know what their motives are. I would love to know. And this is not to say that every doctor who purports to treat chronic Lyme, and let's quit calling it that, is bad. They're not. They're not all bad. I know that some of them have good intentions, but again, ask these critical questions. These doctors who are charging $1,000, $2,000 for an initial appointment, why? Why are they doing that? Why are they publishing books about all kinds of treatments that are they're like a guessing game? When we've got the science that says what this freaking disease is. So ILADS as an organization is not being helpful. They're just not. They've got millions of dollars in the bank, and you can look up their 990 forms. It lists all of their assets. And they have their own research organization. But what are they researching? Are they doing anything that's going to help us? Are they doing anything that's going to get us out of this hole that we've been in? I mean, my God, it makes me think of Silence of the Lambs, where we're down in that hole and we're, begging for a bowl of water for our puppy, Damn it. Aren't we beyond that? Aren't we above that? So we need to demand more of these organizations who supposedly are advocating for us. And ILADS being number one on that list. How can they have a scientific conference when they're not talking about the real science of this disease? That's what I want to know. And for ILADS members, doctors out there who are members, I would urge you to leave the organization. Don't renew your membership, because those guys, unless they take some kind of legal action and come out and say Lyme is an immunosuppression disease, or, Lyme, this Lyme, then they're not working for us. And we need to quit giving them money. So, ILADS doctors, you need to hold them accountable. You're paying dues, and Are they speaking for you? Are they speaking for your patients? We need to know. Get your money's worth. So that's what I wanted to say. I know that was kind of long and rambling, but there was a lot of ground to cover. And so I hope that was helpful. I hope people remember this. Remember, when we told the legislators we met with, burn this into your brain, we meant it. This is what we're all suffering. That's what is denied. And we need to get angry, and we need to start doing something about it. And we need to start holding our advocates accountable to it. Okay, that's about it, folks. I am en route. I'm at a truck stop. I don't know if you saw the trucks driving by behind me. But that's all for today. And I really, really want people to start thinking critically. Please, don't do it for me, you know. Do it for yourself. Do it for your friends. Do it for your kids, your loved ones who are sick. Do it so that the media starts covering what this disease really is. Do it so the doctors who are maybe on the fence start thinking about it a little bit more critically. You know, we've got to shift the conversation from one of antibiotics versus no antibiotics to one of nobody's talking about what the disease really is. Right here. Shift the conversation to this. Antibiotics won't cure any of it. All right. Thank you. Love you all. Let's be the warriors that maybe we weren't born to be, but that we have to be. Because nobody else is doing it for us. We've got to be our own warriors. All right? Peace.